Virtual teachers. Was it shocking to see how some of your kids actually live? And if so, what was the most extreme story? Story 1. I teach 5th grade and I had a student who kept apologizing for getting her work in late. She said she had to watch her younger brothers and feed them dinner because her mom worked 2 jobs outside of the home. While not really shocking considering the district I'm in, I never would have guessed this was her circumstance. She's 10 and had the responsibilities of a parent. There's even a name for it: parentification. My ex-wife disappeared off the face of the earth with my son for almost 7 years. She homeschooled him and his half-brothers. I only had vague hints that she had moved somewhere southwest. Eventually, I got served papers from a court in New Mexico charging me with child abandonment and failure to pay child support. I drove 15 hours to go to that court case only to find out he and his brothers had been removed from her home because the house was deemed unfit for human living. Once I showed the court-appointed lawyer all my paperwork showing I didn't owe child support, she refused it and signed legal paperwork that was filed with the court, and explaining that I had no idea where he even was. The lawyer immediately stopped me, brought in the state's lawyer, and explained everything. I ended up staying in New Mexico for a week, working with child services, having background checks ran, proving my income and living arrangements, the whole gamut. All while they explained to me that he had been a victim of parentification, where my ex made my 9-year-old son essentially take care of his younger brothers, make meals, baths, almost everything a parent should do. After it was all said and done, I was granted temporary custody of my son and we went back home. She came to the area I was living. I had my personal lawyer draw up paperwork for sole custody, gave her some story about needing it for insurance reasons. She signed without even having a lawyer look at it. She asked for custody back once she finally got her other kids back and had moved yet again. I told her to talk to my lawyer because she wasn't getting him back. She never did. He's an adult now, doing good, after a lot of therapy. Has seen her maybe twice in the last 14 years, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And that's how I learned there is a word for what you're describing, as well as got full custody of my son. Obviously, in each culture, things are done differently. In some countries, children are expected to help family and even work on the family business, if there is one, or even go out to work. In an ideal world, kids don't have to do this. But life is not always like that. What the wife did, running away like that and basically stealing a child from a parent, is very wrong, however. I don't fully understand the way things are done in the US, and why would the father who was not at fault be given such a hard time, threatened by courts and all? Clearly, he couldn't even find his son. The wife kidnapped him. She is at fault here, surely. Story 2. I had a student in my class last year who we were well aware had a rough home life. The poor kiddo struggled big time with mental health and behaviors and his self-esteem. I lost a lot of sleep about this child and his well-being long before COVID. Every day I met with him individually for a significant amount of time. The things I saw in 3.5 months broke my heart on a new level. I had no idea what his true reality was. I'm an adult who is arguably well-adjusted and has strong coping skills. Every day after I got off video chat, I was so overwhelmed and upset, and I wasn't even in the home. During all of our calls, his guardian was situated half-clothed in a recliner behind the computer. It was in their living room. His guardian would yell and scream at my student, call him names, talk about him with another adult in the room. That jerk did this or that. His family would have constant screaming match fights or have raging dance parties so loud I could barely communicate with my student. The guardian would also jump in, yelling at him if she didn't think he was listening to me or on task. There was constant negative background noise. I always try to operate with the assumption as a teacher that I don't know all the baggage my students are carrying and that it's my job to lead with kindness and compassion always. This opened my eyes to just how important that really is and just how little I really knew about the things this kiddo was battling against. Story 3. One of my students seemed to live in an actual mansion. I thought it was a green screen or something, but saw their parents walking around behind them later. So in that similar vein, a good friend of mine is a public school science teacher for 8th graders in a very affluent area. As in, median home prices around the school district are easily $750,000 and up. My teacher friend, on the other hand, is decidedly middle class and lives a half-hour commute away in a one-bedroom apartment. He was blown away by the level of luxury and decadence that many of his students were living in. With the one that stood out to him the most was a student that would often start the class day outside on what looked like a large, fully furnished country club patio space with a huge, well manicured lawn out behind it. Nope, just the kid's everyday home. Well, there's no special virtue in people who happen to live in luxury homes. It doesn't make them any more special than anybody else, including a kid who lives in a beat up trailer with alcoholic parents. Life is life. We each have our lessons to learn in whatever conditions we're in. Some of the best people I've known are those who've come from a hard life, poverty even, not usually the ones who come from affluent backgrounds. Story 4. Not a teacher, but I work in child safety. So many teachers and schools are insisting on kids being at desks, wearing non-pajamas, and having a quiet environment. Too bad so many of the kids we work with live in houses where they may share a bedroom with 3 siblings or more, where the idea of quiet time is impossible due to living with a baby, an elderly family member, or just a bunch of other kids also doing school from home. Most kids don't have a desk at home. A large portion of kids don't have somewhere all their own except their beds, and some don't even have that. And schools will still give them crap about that. One of the schools we worked with considered it a really good day when 30% of the kids showed up. There is no way I could have done virtual school as a kid. In elementary school, my family of 5 lived in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment. I shared a bedroom with 2 siblings and shared a bed with my sister. We were so poor we didn't have consistent power or water. My parents wouldn't have been able to pay for internet or devices for 3 kids. Plus, my parents worked blue-collar, low-wage jobs. Who would have watched us? In high school, it would have been a bit better, but my parents were divorced and my mom couldn't have done her factory job from home. Also, both my parents were abusive and would surely have been caught screaming or hitting us on Zoom. I honestly try so hard not to think about what some kids must be going through right now, or it would tear me apart. Story 5. I've done virtual since March and did it over summer for summer school. Yes, but most shocking moment? I saw a mom in a thong. It took me a second to realize I was seeing the backside of this unsuspecting middle-aged woman. No judgment, I'm 40, just giving a visual. This was not some penthouse forum moment. As a heterosexual female witnessing a woman I do not know in a thong, yes, it was shocking. Glad it was me instead of a male coworker. Luckily, I used 2 computers, one for Zoom and one to actually check their online work. I pretended to be very, very focused on the other computer as if I did not see what I saw. However, it did make me realize the teenage girl and the mom share a room, and that's probably why she usually keeps the lights off and the camera angled away from the room. This was the one time the lights were on, and if you know Zoom, you know the breakout rooms and how they work. I had the student by herself in a breakout room. I suspect they didn't expect me to be popping in to check on her right at that moment. No one had said or acknowledged anything, so I think in the clear. After this, I think Zoom needs a "Hey, I'm joining your breakout room" option. Kind of like a polite knock. Weird world we live in trying to figure out a new etiquette. That's funny, actually. People are weird sometimes. I can't imagine behaving like that while speaking to someone professionally on Zoom, but it sounds like you handled it very courteously and respectfully. I mean, what else could you do or say? Story 6. Student here. Half the class never turned the camera on. 1/4 of the class was serious about their appearance. The other quarter and some of the no camera group were chill about it and always up for some cameos or funny stuff to do while the teacher was giving their lesson. Sometimes someone who cared the least about the classes let other people in who named themselves with funny names. Think of something like Mike Coxlong, but in another language, and wrote funny stuff. Good times. I can say something about how the teachers live, though. Some of them live in houses that totally represent their personality, like our history and philosophy teacher, who has more an encyclopedic knowledge rather than a teacher's one, always streamed from her big library room full of old books that she probably inherited by relatives during her lifetime. Story 7. I had a kid who was stuck in the middle of a custody thing mid-quarantine. He was so excited to show us his new digs when he moves in May. The place he was excited about had gaping holes in the drywall, graffiti written all over the inside of the house, and broken crap everywhere. But he got the run of the whole basement floor, and there was enough land for his homeless buddy, also a student of mine, to park his mobile home out back. I didn't want to know what living conditions he'd come from to be excited about that. Story 8. My middle school team agreed to not require kids to show their face background. One time, a kid surprised me though. His little brother, probably 8 years old, was bothering him during one of the last few classes, and they had a pool. I was honestly more surprised by the pool since I teach Title I. A student said to just throw the kid in the pool. I stopped this and probably gave the most important life lesson ever. Wait! There's a checklist you need to go through before throwing someone in a pool. 1. Can they swim? 2. Do they have electronics on them? 3. Is it safe? If it passes all of those, throw them in the pool. Whoa, that could have gone really badly. You were quick thinking there with the safety suggestions checklist. Excellent idea to get the kid thinking before acting. He needs to learn to be responsible and accountable for his actions. Story 9. Here's a positive one. When my students send me pics of their homework, occasionally there will be a pet on their bed or a paw in the pic. I made a big deal out of how delighted I was to see pets, and then assignments with pet cameos came rolling in, including farm animals posing with homework. I'm on summer break now, but my Spanish teacher would always make a point of asking to see our pets. She would always go nuts when she saw my cats because they're her favorite type of pet. Story 10. I'm not a teacher or a student, but the city where I live just had a news story about a man who killed his girlfriend while her 10-year-old girl was in the middle of online school. Her teacher called the police, and when they got there, the teacher was still on the laptop, calmly giving directions to the 3 children to stay in the back bedroom until the cops came. It was horrifying. The teacher is the hero here. If she had lost control, the kids could have had a far more traumatic experience or even placed in serious danger. What a terrifying experience for everyone, and so very tragic for the kids to lose their mom. Story 11. A colleague and I were driving around town delivering work and school stuff to our kids. He went to go find one of his students and found them in a rough-built shack behind a gas station. He said it was about the size of his camper and had 4 people living in it. He is a mostly affluent school, so he was really shocked to see that. Put things in perspective a little. Story 12. Some of my students have to connect through their phone because they don't have internet at home nor a computer. Story 13. I was shocked at how one of my students managed to stay focused in every class despite her wild little brother goofing off in the background and doing everything he could to get her attention. It sounds like this student has a talent for focusing on whatever task she's doing that is beyond average. It's great to be a teacher and to notice these special skills in kids. Hopefully, any good teacher can encourage the development of these talents. The girl will probably make a really good mom too one day. Story 14. In the rural areas of my country, some students had to climb up a tree in order to get a secure Wi-Fi connection. Not only that, they sometimes get attacked by snakes and other wild animals during class. After this thing went viral, the government then finally started to make some effort to help. It's sad that when a thing started to go viral, only then the government starts to act. Story 15. I had a kid with a loaner Chromebook from school. He would always Zoom from a car while parked in a Starbucks parking lot. After some digging, I found out that his family is homeless. They go to Starbucks for the free Wi-Fi. Oh, that's sad, but the kid was doing the best he could in a very hard situation, no doubt. What a trooper. Some of these kids really try hard to make it and end up doing really well in their studies as long as they stay away from drugs. Story 16. You know, when I was in school, I didn't even have a desk at home. I used to do my homework at the library after school before I went home. I can't imagine trying to work at home as a kid. My home was a madhouse. There was always some kind of insanity going on between all my family members. Story 17. A student wasn't allowed to talk in the morning, so she had to whisper it if she had a question about something. It warms my heart to know that there's a teacher on Reddit that goes by the username pianofucker16. Story 18. Some of my students had absolutely no privacy whatsoever, and chaos reigned. How can I be mad that they can't get their work done? Hint, I can't. Question is, why don't they have any privacy? Do you mean that at home they don't have their own quiet room? If I was a kid in that situation, I'd go to some place where I could just be alone to study without interruptions. But probably not everyone can find such a place. Story 19. Not something I saw, but I asked what they're enjoying about distance learning, and a shocking amount said that they can use the bathroom whenever they want. Story 20. Every time when one kid in my class had to unmute their mic, there was music in this house at some ridiculous volume. Doesn't sound like a good environment to learn anything much, to be honest. Perhaps the teacher should suggest they turn off music or find a quiet room where they can focus on their lesson. It's sad that these parents don't help their kids even achieve this. Story 21. I'm a student, not a teacher, but I saw one of my classmates in a bathtub one day. Nobody even mentioned it. He was just there. Story 22. In the spring with distance learning, I learned a bunch of the kids live in mansions with designer dogs and brand new dirt bikes. Explained a lot of entitled behavior. Not sure what a designer dog is, but I get the idea about the entitlement attitude. Yes, some of these kids think they're little princes and princesses, and everyone around them is there to serve their every whim. It's sad, but true. There are a lot of spoiled kids around, and they are not the best of people usually. Story 23. I teach at a private school and was completely mesmerized by some of my students' houses. Immaculately clean throughout quarantine and straight out of a magazine. I taught preschool too, so I at least expected to see some toys strewn about or something in the background. Story 24. My son was on a Zoom call with his teacher who had 5 grandkids under age 4 and 3 dogs in her 2-bedroom house. Her kids all work in first responder or medical jobs, and the daycares were closed. His speech therapist does all of her lessons from her car in the Starbucks parking lot because they have good Wi-Fi. Oh my God, sounds like chaos. But it's amazing how creative some people get when they need to find ways to survive, even in these situations, and find some kind of order. At least enough to be able to get things achieved. The teacher sounds amazing to be able to handle all that. Story 25. I saw nothing of note. It was bedrooms and couches. Kids were in PJs a lot. Sometimes there were siblings and parents in the background. Really boring, actually, which is good. Story 26. I'm not a teacher, but a student. I've seen somebody walk around with their phone as they took care of their farm animals. He's got some cute rabbits. I'm assuming this person was your teacher. Probably should have been sitting at a desk while tutoring you instead of taking care of the animals, but oh well. You got a neat experience seeing the animals. Story 27. Student here. It was pretty cool to see everyone else in a messy room whilst shirtless with a headset on. It's definitely the most effective way to work. Story 28. Not surprised, but I gave one-on-one help to a kid, 13, male, who was babysitting 3 toddlers. It was exhausting just watching him. Can't imagine actually being there 24/7. Oh, poor kid. 3 toddlers would be absolutely exhausting to say the least. How can the kid learn anything like this? Where were his parents or other family? Are these his siblings, or is he working for someone babysitting? Not great, but it happens that sometimes kids start earning money earlier than they should have to. Story 29. I honestly just saw beds. They all stayed in bed all day. Seriously. Click on one of the videos on the screen now, or Karen will sue you.